We have been waiting for this for a long time. Aprilia Tuareg Rally, off-road park. You know exactly what's coming. This Aprilia Tuareg test for Bike World has been a long time coming. People have been crazing us, asking us to do it. I've been desperately trying to get hold of one. I've ridden one before, but never got the opportunity to do a Bike World video on it. So finally, we have a Tuareg Rally. And on paper, this is one of those bikes that seems to tick all the boxes. It's sort of what everyone's been crying out for. It's 80 horsepower, but having ridden this engine in lots of bikes now, it's a good, angry 80 horsepower. Actually, this rally version is just shy of 200 kilos weight. It's 199 kilos, thanks to its lighter wheels, lighter exhaust compared to the stock one. It's also sub 12.5 grand. It's 12,400, I think. And it looks cool, so there's a lot going for this bike before you've even ridden it. Sadly, chainsaw storage is poor, so I'm gonna have to hope I can... You reckon I can wedge my way through there? There are only little branches. I'll hold them up with my head. Ow, ow. Anyway, as I was saying, on paper the Tuareg Rally is sort of the middleweight adventure bike that lots of people have been asking for. And having ridden this engine now, you know it's going to be good. I mean, listen. Just sounds so good. So with a mega engine note, good power delivery, and all the numbers in the right place, all that remains is to make sure it actually rides well. And straight away, I've been impressed. The engine is quite an interesting motor. It seems to have a bit of Jekyll and Hyde about it. It's able to lug low down, give a good grip off the bottom end, but then when you want to go crazy and send it down a fire road, it'll more than happily oblige. The power might not be a much bigger number than that of a Tenere, but the nature of the engine and the way it feels is considerably more barky, considerably more sporty, considerably more Aprilia, if we're honest. My only complaint with the engine has been the fueling right at the bottom. It's a very lumpity-bumpity feeling engine. It's got that and from time to time I found it quite hard to feed in exactly the power I want at really low RPM. It's more been a learning the bike thing than anything else, but it definitely takes a little bit of getting your head round to start with, especially if you've come off something with a smoother power delivery. That said, once you're rolling, it's really predictable. It's really easy to get the most out of the engine, and boy can it fly when it wants to. One of the things Aprilia mentioned about the bike was making the engine light and quick to rev up, which they actually said was to make it better for wheeling through holes. Good job, Aprilia. It's good for that. In fact, every step of the way today, I've been really surprised at how much traction the bike makes, despite being on the standard Pirelli STR rally road tyres. hang on a minute. We're testing the Aprilia Tuareg Rally, which is the off-road version of the Tuareg. We're on road tyres. I'm not quite sure why it comes on road tyres. I'm guessing they don't expect most owners to go and ride them hardcore off-road, or if they do, they'll change them. But it's on a sort of 70-30, 80-20 road bias tyre. It's the Pirelli Scorpion STR Rally. It's a decent tyre for gravel tracks, but it's not a hardcore off-road tyre. That said, if you pick your trails carefully, it's amazing how far you can go with a road bias tyre. The stuff we've ridden here today is a lot of it's quite gravel-based, rocky, and without slimy mud layered on the top, which actually you can do way more than you think on a road tyre on that sort of terrain. Try and ride wet grass or sloppy mud, for sure it's hopeless. But one thing it does show on a bike is how confidence inspiring it is and how well balanced it is. Because when you haven't got a load of grip to lean on and get away with stuff, you really quickly notice if a bike's twitchy or top heavy, or whether you've got good feel in the front tyre. So far, this Aprilia has actually really impressed me. The riding position's super stood up, so I feel like I'm not over the front tyre as much as I'd want to be, but it's well balanced. I've done lots of tight technical U-turns over slimy ruts, and I've never felt like it's going to topple, and once it's got off balance, I've never felt like I can't hold it up. So the combination of good weight distribution, fairly lightweight to start with for an adventure bike, means this thing does a damn good job even on the road tyres. That's not going to stop me trying to get it stuck. That's my next one. The one thing I have noticed is if I've been riding flat out on a fast fire road, trying to use full throttle in third and fourth gear, I really have to brace in with my feet and lock my legs to the bike to avoid kind of hanging on the bars and falling off the back, just because that cockpit area is so short. But everywhere else it's actually made it really comfortable and giving it a good confidence inspiring stance when you're trying to tackle something tricky. So they've done a good job with that. Should we do that again? I'm gonna have to do it one more time. It's just too much fun. Yes, Aprilia. Yeah, I didn't mention that in my initial bit, but this thing's got 240mm of suspension travel. That's getting on for a serious amount of travel for an adventure bike. It's set up quite stiff, quite springy. It hops off things. It sort of like pops its way around the trail. I think for loose, rocky British stuff, when it's wet like this, it would benefit from slowing the suspension travel down a little bit, you know, actually opening the compression to let it move through the stroke more, and then closing the rebound down to stop it kicking and bouncing off things quite so much. But it does make it a properly exciting ride. Ooh, especially on road tyres. And in terms of instrumentation, yep, it's got a dash. I've made my thoughts clear on fancy dashes on off-road bikes. No, it's got all the information I have needed. The only thing I wasn't super keen on was the settings for traction control, engine brake control, engine power mode. They're just numbers on the screen. There's no, without getting the manual out, there's no clear way as to what's more intervention or less intervention. You just sort of have to guess. So that would be a helpful upgrade, but other than that, easy to set the modes up, easy to get the bike, yeah, set to how I wanted it. Flip the brake lever tip over so it's higher, so easy to reach when you're standing up. Pull the rubbers off of the footrests. Oh, big rocky slabby hill, let's try that. And that was all I had to do. Woo. Whee! There's some holes in there. Nice. Every now and then, I ride a bike that really surprises me. And that's one of them. Maybe it shouldn't have been a surprise. We've been a long time getting around to testing the Tuareg, especially the Tuareg Rally, and there's been a lot of good stuff said about this bike. But I'm always wary when everyone else is hyped about a bike that it builds it up so much in your mind that the reality then is
not quite as exciting as you thought it was going to be. Genuinely, it hasn't been. That bike has seriously impressed me today. It's not perfect. None of the bikes in this category are perfect yet. They're still developing them, but it is a damn good bike, and I have had an awesome time ragging around on it today.
That bark from that engine, and then when you shut the throttle, it's got a real crackle and burble on the overrun, which is childish, but oh, it sounds so good.
Now, if you've been here before, you'll know the deal. If you're new, welcome to Bike World. This is an off-road review. I've done 15 road miles on this bike. What we focused on today is bringing it to an off-road play park and pushing it to what we think are a good level. There's always an ability to take this stuff further and harder and be more abusive to it, but we've ridden this some gnarly places today and properly had a good time on it. I think this ticks a lot of boxes on paper. It's sub 12.5 grand for the rally version. It's sub 200 kilos fully wet, and it makes 80 horsepower, but they're not the same horsepower as, say, a Tenere horsepower. These are angry horsepower. They're bitey. It snatches at the leash. It wants to go. It's very Aprilia. Add to that the fact that it's got 240mm suspension travel, a decent off-road riding position, switchable ABS, enough tech to help you along, but it's not covered in pointless extra gadgets and gizmos that just weigh you down and get in the way. Add that to the fact that it's got some racing pedigree now, and it looks pretty damn cool. I don't think it's pretty, but it's a striking bike, and it looks quite unique in the adventure bike world. It's instantly recognizable as the Aprilia Tuareg. On paper is all well and good, but the proof of the pudding is in the riding through a muddy rut or something. This bike needed to perform, and having had so much positive praise for it from some of my good friends whose opinions I trust, I was sort of trying not to get my hopes too high and then be disappointed. Not a chance. Today it has been faster than I thought it would be. It's been way more tractable with the engine than I thought it would be. I found it well balanced. I found it easy to get out of tricky situations. I found I had confidence in the front tyre despite this stuff falling from the sky and the fact that we've ridden it on road tyres. It has pretty much every step of the way exceeded what I thought it was going to do. My list of complaints wish lists is very short. My list of things I love about it is growing every time I ride it. Aprilia has done a damn good job with the Tuareg. Let's talk about the chassis straight away. The riding position is kind of following the modern trend of adventure bikes where it's quite upright. For me, I can stand bolt upright on the foot pegs and my elbows are still bent. Genuinely at my height, I would actually probably put a lower handlebar on to give myself a little bit more lean forward, which I find gives me more confidence and feel in the front tyre and makes it easier to brace when I'm trying to use full throttle on big fast riding sections. That said, I didn't really struggle for confidence in the front tyre today. Those 70-30, 80-20 road bias tyres are not known for giving you good feel when you're riding awkward muddy ruts and edges, but what the bike did is it didn't try and spit me off every time I tucked the front. Riding these conditions on those tyres, I was always going to be losing the front and having dabs, but none of them felt like they snapped quickly. None of them felt like they got away from me. It slid, I either caught it with my balance or put my foot out and carried on. It was a no drama situation, which then means when you put full on off-road tyres on, it will keep that same characteristic, just at a higher lean angle, a higher level of grip, a higher speed round the turn. And that's what you want. You want a bike that doesn't bite you in the bum every time you overstep the mark. Suspension wise, as standard, it's set up actually pretty stiff. Riding fast stuff, I found it quite springy and bouncy. It made it really good fun for hopping and jumping off logs and banks, but to fly down a fast, rough road, it felt a little bit twitchy and nervous. Again, easy to change, back the compression off, wind the rebound in, slow it all down a bit, and the bike will come back under control. I didn't, because I actually then went off to find some massive jumps to flat, and it's phenomenal. You can drop from a metre, metre and a half, 2 metres, slap down onto no landing, and it just takes it. It doesn't bottom out, it doesn't crunch, it doesn't make a horrible noise. It's unbelievable how much you can take liberties with the standard suspension on this bike. I did some horrible things to it today, and it never once complained.
Oh my God, this has got so much suspension travel.
That's pretty cool. Now, the engine for me is one of the biggest talking points of any of the 660 Aprilias, you know, the 210, the RS and the Tuareg. It's an absolutely banging engine. Aprilia have a history of making epic engines, and they've taken the parallel twin class and put their own spin on it. They've given it a bit more bark, a bit more soul, a bit more noise, an ability to tractor up super slippery rough stuff without constantly kicking off rocks, but then sing when you send it down the fire road. I'm fully in love with the engine. My only gripe with it was the sort of low speed stuff. I could always find grip and I didn't really end up stalling it too often, but it just felt a bit rough, a bit lumpy and unrefined at that very low throttle opening part. I think it's probably more a character of that engine than anything else, but I'd probably look to see if you could map it out, improve the throttle response maybe on the electronic throttle, or even put a bit more fuel in and not worry about the emissions stuff as an aftermarket customer. But that was my only real gripe with it. It pulled so well when I didn't expect it to. And coupled with the nature of this bike, which is quite upright and giving good rear traction, I managed to actually pivot turn the front wheel out of some ruts and lift the front wheel over puddles in places that I fully expected it to wheel spin. This bike finds traction and finds it well, even in horrible conditions. Other parts of the riding position that I really liked, the bit between your legs, phenomenal. But genuinely, that bit on a lot of adventure bikes is a bit wide, a bit poking in the knee, a bit awkward. Even manufacturers like KTM, who are kind of off-road bike gods, they get that wrong on some of their adventure bikes. Aprilia's got it right. The sort of clamping between your feet is a decent width, it's not too wide, and there's a fairly smooth surface, so you can get a good hold of the bike with your legs, and there's nothing jabbing you in the shin or the side of the knee. Tiny point, but you ride off-road at decent speed for a full day, that's the stuff that you notice, and it's quite hard to change. It's a fabulous bike, and I'm genuinely nitpicking to try and find holes in it. I've mentioned I'd like the fueling to be a bit cleaner, a bit crisper. I also found that the clutch eventually got a bit heavy. I'm not saying I want to see a hydraulic clutch on it, but maybe a nicer lever compared to the standard kind of non-adjustable blade road bike lever would give you a bit more adjustment to get it in the sweet spot for whatever size hands you've got. At 12.5 grand, it's not the cheapest one in that middleweight class, but it does punch above its weight in terms of engine capacity. If you're in the market for a exciting, punchy middleweight adventure bike that you want to take off-road, I think the Tuareg Rally should be very near the top of your list. The only hesitation I have with it is it's not the same as buying a Yamaha or a Ducati or a KTM, where you go to a big soulless main dealer workshop and there's a fleet of the same bike there, and you know, Aprilia's a little bit harder to find a good dealer. They are out there. There are some fantastic Aprilia dealers in the UK, but they might not be local. So if you're prepared to travel a bit to find a really good dealer, I think one of those Tuareg Rallies would be well worth a look. I am rapidly falling for it.